So today we're going to talk about how you can make your home look more expensive. This is one of the questions that I get asked so much as an interior designer, because people think that in order to have an expensive looking home, you need to spend a lot of money or you need to buy things that cost a lot of money. And honestly, it's not the case. I think that more often than not, when a home looks expensive or like well put together, it's because the person doing it has an idea of what they're doing. They know how to make things work despite the price tag. So today we're going to talk about that. I'm going to give you some tips and ideas and things that you can do to your place that I think most of them are pretty affordable and you can implement literally over a weekend. So we're going to get into the video and let's talk about things you can do to make your home look more expensive. So my first tip is to avoid using fake materials. So avoid using like fake stone, fake timber, fake whatever it is. I often see people use this in their homes in like really large scale areas, like a kitchen on a splashback or something. They're going to use like a fake Caesar stone or porcelain tiles, which I think porcelain tiles are maybe okay. But I think if you are trying to go for that like high-end look with fake finishes, it's not really going to get you there. I think if you can find an alternative material, like maybe a smoked mirror or paint in some instances, it's always going to lift that space in a way that a fake material is not really going to do it. I think when you're using paint, always avoid like highly saturated colors or like primary colors or colors that are quite flat, because essentially you have to think about that's going to be the backdrop of furniture and homewares, and it's going to be kind of difficult to find homewares that go with like a lime green or, you know, a really strong red. I would encourage you to use paints with like maybe interesting finishes. Maybe it has like an eggshell finish or something with a bit of texture in it that's going to kind of elevate that sort of flat surface as opposed to just like a solid primary color. I think that Porter's Paints has some really good colors and they have really good finishes and options, and they are a little bit pricier than your everyday paint, but I definitely think it's worth it if you're willing to invest a little bit more money to get sort of the desired outcome. So that's my first tip, is to avoid using fake materials and try and implement maybe paints or, you know, even wallpapers, which is really interesting. I would say avoid going for any prints that are like childlike or a little bit gimmicky, because again, you're not really going to get that desired effect. I would even recommend going for like a grass cloth wall finishing. That always has a really high-end feel. It adds texture. They come in so many different colors. And again, having like a natural element in your home, I think is always going to elevate it, as opposed to something that is man-made or, you know, not really hitting the mark. Okay, so continuing on with the faux trend, my second tip is to avoid altogether fake plants, plastic plants of any kind. I will never say that this works in interiors, because I just think, what is the point of having a plastic plant when you can have beautiful real ones that are going to do so much more for your space? Fake plants are very obvious. I've never seen a fake plant that I thought was real. You can tell pretty much straight away from their finish. They're always really waxy and shiny, and it does nothing for your space. Unless you're trying to achieve a cheap reception waiting room space, then I would say avoid fake plants at all costs. There's like so many options for indoor plants these days, and if you're not a plant person, which I'm not, I have like 2 plants in my apartment because I just don't really have the time to take care of them and I don't want to kill them. So I get ones that are really hardy, that really only need watering once a week. They're good for indoors, they like filtered light. So I would just do some research and finding some plants that meet that criteria, and already by doing that, ditching your fake plants and putting in some new real ones, your space already is going to feel so much more authentic and expensive. Okay, another really simple way to upgrade your home and make it feel more expensive is to upgrade your joinery hardware. This is something that's like so overlooked, and I don't know why, because I know that some people think it's a small detail, but once you do it, you'll realize how it can change the feel of the space. You can find pretty much any hardware that you want on various sites. You can go to Bunnings, you can have a look on Etsy if you're after something a little bit more unique. And I will say that if you have metal finish hardware or timber, I would try to avoid mixing and matching finishes in your apartment. So for example, if your tapware is brass, maybe you go with the brass hardware. If you have oak floor, maybe you go with an oak finish joinery hardware. But other than that, I think it's pretty open to interpretation, and again, it's just a really small way that you can make your space feel a little bit more elevated and considered. This one may seem like a pretty simple one and like it's not going to have much effect, but the number of houses that I go into that have those IKEA frames, they have artwork on the wall and all the frames are those white or black melamine IKEA frames, and instantly knowing where they come from, the space feels cheap, because IKEA is an affordable furniture company and we love IKEA. But if you're going to have really beautiful art or photographs and things mounted on the wall or around your home, why not invest in maybe a vintage timber photo frame or anything other than the IKEA one? I think when you use materials like timber or metal or things that have a bit more of an ornate feel to them, it's going to not only make your apartment feel more expensive and authentic, but it's actually going to enhance the thing that you're framing. So if you have a really beautiful artwork and you look at it in an IKEA frame as opposed to a really beautiful oiled vintage timber frame, they're two different things. It's two different messages that you're sending. So that's a really small one, but I would consider going around your apartment and seeing what type of frames that you have and whether or not you'd be willing to upgrade them, because I think you'd be pleasantly surprised by the effect that it has on your home. So similarly to my last tip, I would say try to add pieces to your home that have historical meaning to you, or things from your past that have some sense of familiarity or sentimentality, if that's a word, something sentimental. I think things from the past always have a sense of quality to them and craftsmanship, and by implementing that into your space, you're instantly going to give that lift to your home. This might be an old piece of furniture that you're wanting to restore, some old photo frames, something that was handed down to you, but not only is it going to make your home feel a little bit more warm and welcoming, it's instantly going to make it feel more expensive, because things from the past, naturally we think of quality, craftsmanship, authenticity, whereas today a lot of stuff is so mass produced that we don't really see that as much in the everyday home. If you don't have any furniture within your family, then you can always go to vintage stores or thrift pieces that you can restore or get someone else to restore and add them into your home and see how it makes a difference. Update your entryway. This is really important because the entry to your home, whether it's small or big, whatever, is where people are going to have their first impression of your space. Whether you like it or not, people are going to judge your home, and maybe that's not a nice thought, but we do it subconsciously. It's what our brains are trained to do, essentially. And if you can create a really beautiful experience in your entryway through using tips that I've just spoken about, for example, like having some really beautiful framed art or some historical pieces, then you're gonna honestly create a really great first impression for anyone that enters into your home. And that's also gonna be for you. That's the nicest part of walking into a home, is feeling like you love where you live. And if you can do this in the entryway, you can do it everywhere else in your apartment. So I would say give it a lick of paint if it needs it, put in some really beautiful art or photographs. It doesn't have to be expensive. And think about how you can maybe add like a console or something that you can have objects on that are going to give that first impression of, I live in a really beautiful home and it feels expensive, it feels luxurious. So I know that in this day and age, it can feel really overwhelming trying to buy furniture, especially when the prices of things is just going up and up. And often we feel like the only option we have is to buy flat pack or cheap mass-produced furniture. And I want to say that try to get out of the habit of doing that if you can. Try to thrift more, find things on the side of the road, go to garage sales, deceased estate sales, because if you can find pieces that maybe cost a little bit more but are still affordable, you're gonna have a way better outcome than just having a generic flat pack piece of IKEA furniture or, you know, West Elm, Pottery Barn, all those things in your home. By finding vintage pieces, you're gonna add a sense of authenticity and uniqueness to your space, and it's something that you can take with you. You can continue to restore, or you can resell it if you don't like it. But I would always encourage to buy something that's vintage or a little bit more custom and has a bit more craftsmanship as opposed to flat pack furniture if you're wanting to make your house feel expensive. This next one I've spoken about before, and that is to upgrade your lighting. If you have white light bulbs, LED light bulbs in your home, I can guarantee you your home feels cheap. And I don't say that to be mean, but it is just the truth. If you're gonna put in new lighting, definitely go for a warm white LED bulb or something that's gonna give a warmer glow as opposed to that really stark white lighting that you see in hospitals and sort of health facilities. As well as that, I would say and encourage to upgrade your light fittings. So if you're in an apartment that maybe you're renting and the light fittings that you have are not really, you know, giving that expensive feel, you can always buy pendants and things to replace what's there. And then if you ever move out, you can just put the old ones back on again and take your fittings with you. So upgrading your lighting is really important because it sets the tone and the atmosphere for our homes, and particularly various lighting creates a sense of cheapness or expensiveness. If you think about restaurants that you go to that have really beautiful dim atmospheric lighting as opposed to a supermarket that has really bright white lighting, it's two different atmospheres and two different experiences, and you want to be picking the nice experience with the warm lighting, the beautiful light fittings that you can get cheaply from anywhere. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Anywhere that you can find something a bit unique is always going to make your home feel expensive and one of a kind. So upgrade your lighting, please. Okay, my last tip is a small one, but I think has an effect, and that is to decant your liquids, decant your foods and things that you have on display. So I know that in the kitchen there's certainly things that we need to have out because we need access to them quite readily all the time. So like hand soap, olive oil, salt and pepper, and I'm all about having things on display, but I think for things that are there 24/7, it's a really good idea to think about decanting them into some sort of container or vessel that's going to make them look more expensive and less generic. So for example, if you have hand soap, maybe you buy an Aesop bottle or a nicer bottle from another brand that when you're finished with it, you can continue to reuse and just decant your sort of supermarket soap into it, because people associate I guess a sense of luxury with certain brands, and if you can bring that into your house in a way that's pretty cost effective, then already you've won that one. You know, with salt and pepper, you can get some really cute vessels or some really nice salt and pepper shakers and things that you can have on display rather than leaving them in the supermarket container bottles that you get, because if you have like a salt and pepper shaker that says like Woolworths on it, you know, or supermarket label, instantly it feels a little bit cheap. Similarly with olive oil, I think you could definitely get a really nice decanter. So you could get maybe a glass olive oil pourer, or even just like a really beautiful ceramic bottle or something to put your olive oil in. And just having those few things on display because you need them, having them on display in a way that they look really nice, instantly you're going to make that space feel way more expensive and considered and thought about. Anyway, so those are some tips I had for things that you can do to make your home feel more expensive. And you know, often people say that for things to be expensive or to look expensive, they need to cost a lot of money, and it's honestly just not the case. If you can find small ways to implement things in a way that makes them feel expensive, like some of the things I've just spoken about now, that will work as a collective to sort of elevate your home and make it feel a little bit more than just generic. Thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel because I'm uploading new content every week. And with that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.